Hey y'all, a quick word before the actual video starts. If you're not interested in watching the whole rigmarole as far as watching the soup being put together, you only want to see the canning process, feel free to jump ahead to this point in the video. I'm pointing up, so hopefully I'll be able to put the time slot up above me where the video is going to start when I show you actually how to start canning, because this video is in particular to canning rather than recipe, but there's recipe too, so whatever, blah blah blah. Anyway, enjoy. Bye. Hey everybody, I'm back in the kitchen and I'm glad you're joining me because we're making soup. Now, the main point of this video is not exactly the making of the soup. It's a big part of it, but I'm going to focus on processing it in a pressure canner. So we have to make the soup first so that we can process it so it's shelf stable, so I can put it in the pantry and have it on hand on those cold nights that I don't feel like cooking and I need something fast and quick. And this is the perfect way to, think ahead and have food ready so that you don't have to stay in the kitchen and, Anyway, I love being in the kitchen, don't get me wrong. But let's start. So, soup. I don't know anybody that doesn't really like soup. If they do say they don't like soup, well, there's something wrong with them. What's wrong with soup? I love soup. Everybody does, as far as I'm concerned. And we love it in this house a lot, especially Brad. He's all about comfort food. So it's a big deal for me to be able to do this and to make a pot of soup that we love. And you can't go wrong with a good vegetable beef. It is our favorite, and I just like to keep it on hand because it tastes a whole lot better when you make it homemade than what you get at the store. I'm sorry, it's just the fact. So anyway, but like I said, I'm going to show you this recipe. I'm not going to focus on the recipe because there's tons of recipes for vegetable beef soup. I'm not going to give measurements here, but I'm going to eyeball it because vegetable beef soup is very forgiving and you can put in it what you want. I'm all about making yourself happy and you use what you want to use. I will throw out some suggestions as we go along, but if you're looking for a recipe, you're not going to get one right here because this is just a method and I'm going to show you lots of things to put in it. Now listen, if you think that I talk too much during my videos or it takes too long for me to get to the point, well then you seriously need to be reading a cookbook and not watching a video. I cannot believe that I get people telling me that I talk too much. What the heck, y'all? I do talk, but hello, this is a video. Do you want me just to stand here and do this? Whatever. I love you, but come on, lighten up. So, here we go. Here's my pot. This is a 4.5 gallon wonderful pot. It's my favorite. It's my soup pot. So, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my heat so that I can get things rolling. I won't be using all beef today. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I do have the wonderful beef that we got. Let me get my bowl. Brad and I went in with some friends last summer and we purchased a steer and we had it butchered, and I'm telling you, if you have never had grass-fed beef, you're missing out because it's the best dang stuff ever. This is, well, it has been frozen and it comes to you frozen after they've processed it. They put it in lovely 1 pound bags, 2 pound bags, however you want it. And the name of the place that we used is called Texca Farms. It's over in Clarksville, Georgia. They know what they're doing. End of story. We will definitely be purchasing more beef from them in the future because we have been so pleased with this stuff. Now, what I'm doing, I'm going to brown up some beef because I like to cook my meat before I actually put the liquid and components in because I want to get that char on the outside. So in goes my beef, and I'm popping. I've got 3 pounds of, this is 80-20 ground beef. It goes straight in. And there is a huge difference in what it smells like when you're cooking grass-fed beef as opposed to just grocery store beef. This stuff is ridiculously good smelling. It just smells the way beef is supposed to smell. And I know what I'm talking about. My daddy's a butcher and I grew up around this, so trust me. But seriously, go visit Texas Farm. I will put a link in the description at the end of the video so you can go visit them because it's worth it. Let's see if I got my flame on. Yep, it's going. Now, my niece, Anika, her current boyfriend is a treasure. And he shot an elk. And, well, he gave us some of the meat. And I am thrilled. Have you ever had game meat like elk or, I don't know, moose for that matter? Well, elk is very similar to beef in the fact that it's a red meat. But look, here you go. It is very dark. I'm sure that it's very, very rich in iron simply because it is so red. There goes 1 pound straight in. I'm actually going to use a total of 3 pounds of elk. So this soup is going to have 6 pounds of meat in it. So it's going to be a big pot of soup, y'all. But it's going to be perfect, and I love it. So, yay. Now this elk is very lean. And that is true for a lot of game meat. So if you were going to make like a hamburger out of elk, well, you probably have to grind up some pork or something to go with it, just because there's not enough fat in that lean meat to make it taste the way you want it to. So you just have to help it a little bit. But there's so much good fat in my beef that the elk is just going to blend right in with it perfectly. So I'm not concerned. I am just going to cook this until it's all nice and done, which won't take long on this thing because this little campfire, it's a maniac. It will heat something up in no time. So, yay for me. So, while we're waiting for this to cook, I'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to be adding to my soup. Now, if you're one of those people who is fortunate enough to have a green thumb, or you happen to excel at being sustainable, self-sustaining farm, a homestead or whatever, mad props to you. I am totally impressed at anybody who can manage that lifestyle because it ain't nothing but work. I'm telling you right now, it's nothing but work. And personally, I don't have time for that. I don't have the room to grow a great big giant garden. I mean, we have enough of an area that we can, plant some tomato plants and a couple of rows of collards and stuff, which we do because Brad loves to garden. But I'm not kidding you. There's no way that I have room to put in rows and rows of green beans or plant corn or to do a ton of potatoes. I just don't have it in me because, well, quite frankly, it's not my passion. I love food. I love to cook food. But growing it, it's not for me. As long as there's a grocery store or as long as there's somebody willing to sell me something, then I'm going to go that route rather than me having to grow it myself. I hope that doesn't sound bad. It's just not what I do, I cook. I don't grow. I'm not Jamie the farmer. Can you imagine? Me on a tractor. Shut up! I don't think Brad would let me drive a tractor. I'm a maniac anyway, and he's like, he don't let me use power tools for that reason, so. Whatever. Okay, so this is cooking, and I'll continue on my rant here. Like I said, I do have some things that I have put up that are going to go in my soup, like this beef stock. This, I made this back when we first got our steer home from the processor. We had lots of good bones, and I roasted them, and then I cooked them down and made this wonderful bone broth. This right here is a 12, almost a 4, well, how long? Maybe a 14-hour cook on this, and it is unctuous and delicious, and the flavor is lovely. It's so much better than this stuff that you get at the grocery store. But I don't have a whole lot of that, and I don't want to use all of my beef broth on this soup. I want to use some. But anyway, I have a selection of things that we like in soup. If there's something that you see here that you don't like, don't use it. That's the beauty of making your own soup. You can put in it what you want to put in it. Now look, I love tomatoes. These are just little old diced up canned tomatoes. I think that soup without tomatoes is kind of lacking in flavor. So I always put tomatoes in my soup. I'm also a big fan of green beans in soup. This is really all they had today at the grocery store when I picked these up. These were called fine green beans, and they were in the frozen section, and they were whole. So I actually had to cut them up to make them into little pieces because they were big long things. But you know, when that's all you got to pick from, you got to make do. So these are going to be good. You could also use the big flat Italian cut green beans. I saw those at the store, but this fits my purpose just perfectly. What else? Corn. I love corn in my vegetable beef soup. Corn is I'm particular about my corn though, I should say. I prefer canned corn over a bag of frozen corn. Now I don't know why this is, but if I buy a bag of frozen corn, it's generally going to be kind of tough. I can't seem to cook it enough to get it to be nice and tender, but canned corn is nice and tender every time, and so I don't mess with the frozen corn any longer. And I do not buy vegetable mixes that contain corn because that corn is always going to be tough, and I don't want to mess with it. So I'm going with, this is just whole kernel golden sweet corn. It's delicious and I like it, so that's what I'm going to use. Onions. Now, these were on sale today, and that's the only reason that I bought these onions. I bought 4 10-ounce bags of just diced, sliced onions, and I'm a big onion fan. We go through a lot of onion in this house. Now, if you wanted to use fresh onions for this, you can go right ahead. It's totally allowed. I just didn't feel like standing here and cutting up a bunch of onions while we were talking, so I didn't. I bought them. But if you want to cut them up, that's your business. You can totally do that. So this is almost to the point that I'm happy with it. I mean, of course I'm happy with it. It smells like heaven. Yum. But I'm going to go ahead and put my onions in so they can start cooking down with that beef. Now, something else that I like to put in my vegetable beef soup is peas and carrots. I like them. I think they're fabulous. I don't like great big pieces of carrot, though. Like, you can buy the stew mix that has potatoes and celery and carrot hunks and stuff in it, but those are great big haunching pieces, and I don't want those in my soup. I like this. This is a nice blend of tiny carrots that are cut up, so this is my preference. It's just a regular little bag of peas and carrots, so that's what I go for. I finished cutting up my onions. If you don't like onions, you're welcome to use some onion powder as a substitute. I wouldn't suggest that you leave the onion powder out because the onion imparts a flavor that, well, it's good and you need it. And we need to have a chat about your onion aversion. Now, I get it, trust me. When I was a little kid, Mama would get me a hamburger, she'd put onion on it, and I'd squall because I'm like, yuck, I don't want that onion touching anything. And now, I love onions. I'd put one under my pillow if I could, I guess. Anyway, so I have put the onions in with my elk and my beef, and I'm cooking it down here. Now, you're going to notice that I am not seasoning anything at this point because I have a reason, but I won't share that just yet. What else am I using? Well, this is just one bag of peas, and it doesn't have any carrots in it. I actually thought I had another bag of peas and carrots. I'm going to have to go find that. But right now, I'm just going in, keep opening up the beds that I do have out. These are just tiny little green peas that I got at Trader Joe's. They're wonderful in this. Now, Brad, he's kind of particular. He don't like the great big old giant green peas. He likes them little. So I make him happy and we go this route. We are also big okra fans. If you don't like okra, by all means, do not put okra in your soup. It is totally a preferential thing. I love okra. And I've always heard all my life, ooh, okra, It's only good if it's fried. Otherwise, it's slimy and gross and blah, blah, blah. And I listen to them, and I shouldn't have because I freaking love okra. I love it in soup. I love it in gumbo. I love to take frozen okra and put it on a baking dish and put some olive oil on it, some salt and pepper, and bake that stuff. Shut up. It's delightful. So I'll be missing out forever. But now I know better, so. Okay, so this is ready. I'm just going to start adding my veg to this because it's ready for it. I'm going in with my tomatoes. Now, at the end of this video, I will write down a recipe of sorts that you could follow. I know that some people are sticklers and don't feel confident enough in the kitchen to make something without a recipe. So I will humor you and I will write something down. But seriously, I want you to step out of your comfort zone and make something that you like and tailor it to your taste. I mean, shoot. That's a wonderful option to be able to make it the way you want it, right? All right, this is just one big fat 28-ounce can of tomato sauce. And it goes straight in. Tomato sauce. Now I have no idea if I have enough stuff to fill this pot. I mean, I've made this recipe 100 times, but I don't write it down, so I just kind of eyeball it. And it is what it is in the end. So, okay, I'm going to go in with my corn. This is, well, it's a bunch. It's 39 ounces. It's 2 pounds, 7 ounces of corn. Boom, right in the hole. With my peas and my carrots. Nothing else. It sure is a colorful pot of soup. Going in with my okra. Here's these little peas. Here's the rest of my corn. And I'm going to hit it with my green beans. And that looks pretty good. I am going to go find my peas and carrots, but I'll do that in a bit. It's not a big deal. And if you see any string in your green beans, well, of course, pull the string out. You don't need to peel the string. Broth. I'm going in with my broth. I wish you could taste this beef broth. It is so good. You could drink it like soup. If you just wanted to heat it up with soup, you could. Because it's fabulous and we love it. So in goes that whole quart of beef bone broth. I've actually got 2 here. So I'm going in with both of these. Alright. Then I need some more liquid, so because it's soup after all. You need liquid. Going in with this, and this is well, how much is in here? 48 ounces. So I'm sure this is around, a bunch. How many cups is in 48 ounces? Probably 5. So going in with that. Oscar, what are you barking at? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and add another thing of broth. Because, well, I need it. And you could, I was just sitting here thinking, this is beef broth, but if you wanted to use chicken broth, I mean, you could. I don't know that I would use chicken broth if I was going to make a ground beef based soup. But you're more than welcome to make a soup just like this using chicken. It would be delicious. I just prefer beef when it comes to soup, unless it's going to be something like a chicken chowder, something creamy. I like that for chicken, but for a brothy kind of soup, I'm all about it being just beef and elk. So, alright, this is looking pretty good. Who am I kidding? It's looking awesome. Got the heat turned up full force. Now, just for grins, and so you can see that you can put anything you want to put in here. Look, here's a can of black-eyed peas. I'm going to put the whole stinking thing in there because, well, I like black-eyed peas, and Brad likes them, and they are going in my soup, just like that. Now, I tend to stay away from items that are melt away when you cook them, things that get real soft and nasty. Like, I wouldn't put broccoli or cauliflower in my vegetable beef soup simply because when they cook to the point that they're done, they're ready to come out. If you cook them beyond that point, they just turn to mush and then they just disappear in your soup. Now the okra will do that to a point, but I don't care. I like okra and I like it to be all mushy in my soup. That's my favorite part. Like I said again, you do what you want. If you want to put some kind of dried bean in this, like a navy bean or a kidney bean, great northern bean would be good. Pinto beans would be awesome. I don't put those in my soup because Brad has a bean protein allergy and he just can't handle it, so I don't put those in here. I have been known to put chickpeas in. Chickpeas are wonderful as a bean replacement. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's better than nothing. So when I make chili, I use chickpeas and it's perfectly wonderful. He doesn't even miss the bean because I'm fabulous. Anyway, this is coming up. It's still it's hot down at the bottom, but it's not very hot here because the fat's still congealed at the top. So I'm going to put the lid on it for a little while. Let me get the lid here. And I'm going to let it cook until I see some bubbles starting to come to the surface. And that's when I will add the seasonings and maybe just a hint more water because I've got room and, you know, why not? I will tell you now about my pressure canner. This is my Presto 23 quart pressure canner. It's a dream. I love my pressure canner. It is a beast. I'm not scared of it. I know a lot of people are very intimidated at the thought of using a pressure canner because they've heard stories from their grandma that one blew up in the kitchen and it blew a hole in the ceiling and your grandpa had to fix the roof, whatever. I mean, you know, stuff happens. I am not scared of my pressure canner because, number one, I follow procedure according to the rules and regulations that are on the direction packet. And number two, I try to use some common sense and, you know, understand the dynamics of working with steam and working with something that's very hot. So if you just approach it the right way, you're going to be fine. I promise you'll be fine. And if you're still scared, we'll call me and I'll walk you through it and we'll be fine, really. And you're going to be so proud of yourself and you're going to have soup sitting on the counter and it's going to be able to go in your pantry and you're going to be able to enjoy it in 8 or 10 months and you'll be so excited. Okay, we're good. Okay, I let this cook for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. And because I'm starting to smell it, so I know that it's really starting to heat up here on top and that's good. That means that I can go ahead and get to work on putting my seasoning in. Now, again, I'm not ashamed to admit, I like seasoning pack. This is what I use. I think it's delicious and it works and that's really my only reasoning behind it. It's McCormick's and it's called Slow Cooker Hearty Beef Stew Seasoning Mix. Now, I'm not necessarily making a stew, I'm just making beef soup, but it's the same premise, it's the same process. So, I mean, I just like the spice blends in it. I like the way it tastes. I like how it just melds in with all the vegetables, and it's delicious. So, if you have access to the McCormick brand, buy it, because it's darn tasty. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of water, put in my little bowl here. That's probably 2 cups of water. Hit or miss. For a big pot of soup like this, it's going to take a few of these packets. So I'm going in with 1 here. Another one. Oh, and it immediately hits you right in the face. I don't know what the fragrance is, but it is delightful. So, that one. And I know it's going to probably take at least 4 to flavor it. So let me get this going here. Stir it up. I'm going to pour this straight in the pot. The reason that I put it in the water was to just guarantee that I wasn't going to have a lot of powder clumps together, because, well, that's never a good thing. And this just makes it blend and incorporate easier into the soup. So I'm going to give it a good stir. And if you're noticing there's more carrot than there was a little while ago, it's because I went and got my peas and carrots that I was missing. And I added them. So, here we go. Golly, y'all, it's already smelling good. Now, at this point, I am going to taste it. I want to taste for the salt. I'm not necessarily tasting it to see for the flavor. I'm tasting it for salt. Because if it needs salt, that means that you didn't season it properly. Here goes. I'm going in. Well, it's right on the edge of being right, but it could use a little. So I'm going to take my salt cellar here. This is probably half a tablespoon. So that's 1.5 teaspoons. Stir it up. Maybe that little bit won't make much of a difference. But I hate to oversalt, you know, and it's always easier to add some salt, because once you add, it's there. You can't take it away. So I'm going to try again. Well, it did. It made a difference. This is really good. It's right on the flavor that I'm looking for. It just has to come to temperature now. I'm going to bring it up to a boil, because as soon as I see that it starts perking along, then I'm going to be ready to put it in my jars. I'm going to do something called a hot pack process. So I'm going to add 1 more quart of water to my trusty pressure canner, and I'm going to bring that up to a boil, because 3 quarts is plenty for a cooker of this size. We're not looking to boil anything. We're looking to cook it with steam and pressure, and 3 quarts will only fill this pressure canner up to about this mark, and that's plenty. So long as you always put 3 quarts in, you're good to go. You don't need any more. You don't need to cover your jars, nothing like that. Trust me on that. Now, while I'm thinking about it and while I saw it, I'm going to put some of this in too. This is pearled barley. I don't know if you've ever had barley, but I love it. It's just it's a grain, and it's hard, and you put it in and it swells up into a little orb. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of like rice, but it doesn't ever cook down the way that rice, because you can get rice good and mushy. Barley keeps its shape for a while. I mean, you really have to cook the fool out of it to get it to break down a lot. I just like what barley does to a soup. It makes it good and hearty. It's got some starch in it. Notice that I didn't put any potato in here. So, I mean, the only starch in this soup is coming from the corn. And while that is sufficient, I just really like the addition of the barley for that extra starch factor, just because it makes it so fabulous. Now listen, if you want to put potatoes in, knock yourself out. The reason that I didn't put potatoes in this batch, I have already canned a bunch of potatoes, and they're in the basement on my shelf, because I had them and I needed to do something with them, so I processed them in my pressure canner, and they're ready to go. So once I cook this and pressure can it, and it goes on the shelf, when I'm ready to serve supper one night, all I have to do is grab a can of those potatoes and a can of this soup, throw it together and heat it up, and it's done. Easy peasy. But if you want to add potatoes to this, little potato cubes, I wouldn't add big hunks, but you know, nice little pieces of diced potato, by all means, please do so, because it would be delicious. And we're going to be processing our quarts for 90 minutes at 11 pounds of pressure per square inch. And that is plenty for potato processing. When you're canning food, you have to be aware of the product that you're using, simply based on the need for canning it to the point that it's safe to eat. Now, something like a tomato, it's full of acid. It's a high acid food, and it doesn't have to be pressure canned. You can water bath that. You can water bath your tomatoes. A lot of jam and jelly, well, most jam and jelly, it doesn't have to be pressure canned. You can totally just water bath it. But for things that have low acid foods in them, really to be on the safe side, you need to use a pressure canner. Now, listen, don't be yelling at me that your grandma water canned her whole life. Good for Granny. She's got bigger balls than I do. I'm not willing to go there, because sure as the world, if I water bath this soup and put it on the shelf and served it to somebody, they'd kill over dead. I mean, that's just my luck. So I go by what the government regulates as far as the food division. They say that it's safe to pressure can low acid foods. That's what I'm going to do. So far, so good for me. Y'all, botulism is a real thing. And if you know somebody that has had food poison, think about botulism as food poisoning times 10, except you're dead. I mean, seriously, it's not worth the gamble. Grandma did it out of necessity. Probably she didn't have access. And so it was, eat or die, or preserve your food the best you can, or you're going to starve to death. So I guess it was it was worth taking that challenge. But we don't have to do that now. It's just not necessary, and it's not something that I'm willing to try on my family or my friends, because, well, I like them. I want to keep them around a long time. I don't want to kill them with botulism in my soup. So please, weigh your options, and I would really, really suggest you go by the safety guidelines set forth by the Food Administration. And that's my PSA. That's my soapbox speech for you. And now this just has to come to temperature. So I'll be back when it's ready to start rolling. Okay, y'all, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about my canner. Like I told you before, this is a 23-quart Presto pressure canner. And it has a very deep reservoir. It comes with racks so that you can do layers of product if you want to do smaller jars. This is what the top looks like. It's got a steam vent, which is the port that the overflow gets to come out of. It releases. And this is your pressure gauge. And you can see that it goes from 0 all the way up to 20. These increments are broken down into units that represent square inch of pressure provided by the steamed water. So we're changing the barometric pressure inside this reservoir because it's going to cook the food inside the jar faster, because we're changing the whole physical and the environmental structure inside that reservoir. So we're going to make the water inside the soup jar, it's going to boil at a different temperature. So it's just a bunch of science. And I'm always telling you, science in the kitchen, you can't get away from it. Well, you can't, especially when you're talking about pressure canning, because this is science to a T. And you have to respect science, because it'll backfire on you if you're not careful. So let's all be careful. Anyway, this is the lid, and it has a gasket that when you go to wash it, that this is something that you take off, and you want to make sure that you stick it back on under the rim, and then it has a nice, good, snug fit, because this is going to keep your steam inside the reservoir so that the cooking can take place, and it won't be making the crazy mess that your granny had to put up with because maybe her gasket dry rotted or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is a new gasket, so I think we're good to go. So putting that aside, I am going to turn my trusty little front eye on here for my lids. We're going to be using quart jars and these 2-piece rings and lids. See, the underside has the actual seal part that's going to get hot, and this is rubber. I guess it's, I don't know, galvanized rubber or something. Anyway, it gets hot, real hot, and with the pressure and by cranking down this lid, you're making a seal so that all the oxygen cooks out and escapes the jar, so that the microbes that are, you know, that promote growth with oxygen, you're going to starve them. You're taking away their air. So they're not going to be able to kill you, which is perfect. Hello, we don't want our soup to kill us. I think this probably comes into one of the reasons why people are kind of on the fence about wanting to try pressure canning. But, you know, I urge you to give it a try, because, I mean, if I can do it, anybody can, and I'm a bonehead, so there's that. Anyway, I am turning my eye on. I'm going to bring this to a boil, and I'm just dropping all these little lids in. Boom, boom, boom. Don't have to separate them. Just drop them in, because, well, that's what you do. I have got, in my sink right next to my stove here, I have got my jars sitting in hot boiling soapy water, because I need those jars to be nice and hot so it won't shock them when we put the hot soup in them. We're going to have this. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on too. And I'm going to add this last quart of water. Now, I told you, you always have to start with 3 quarts of water when you're using a big Presto like this, 23 quart. It does require the 3 quarts of water as your primer, so don't forget to put that in. Turn your heat on. We're going to bring that up to a boil, and then we can turn it down, and we're waiting on our product to get packaged and with a lid on it and put in, so we can put the lid on. Anyway, it is a big stinking process. I get it, but it's fine and it's fun and we're having a good time. So I'll be back in a minute when everything starts coming together, okay? It's time. This stuff came up to temperature. It started boiling, and that just tells me that I reached the boiling point and I am ready to pack. So let me put this in the sink. Now, I didn't cook this. You notice that this is on, I mean, there's no way that this is done. I mean, the barley's not done. The vegetables are not completely cooked the way I would want them for soup, because it's not really had the opportunity to meld the flavors. It is ready to process and pack though, and it will continue cooking in the jar so that when we go to eat it, when we open it in a couple of months, it's already cooked all the way through. It's fine. All we have to do is heat it up. That's wonderful. That's the whole point. That's why we do it, right? Right. All right. So I've got my quart jar set out. I'm using wide mouth because wide mouths are easy to pack, but it doesn't really matter what you use. Whatever. Make yourself happy. I have got a little paper towel here, and I urge you to do this as well. Anytime you're working with a product that has fat in it, like the beef fat, anything with pork fat, chicken fat, whatever you find, you have got to make sure that you clean the rims, because when you're dipping and ladling the hot soup in, you're bound to spill a few drops on the edge of your jar, and the fat on the lid will inhibit the seal. It won't let that seal form. So you're going to be open to all kinds of nasties getting in your food and spoiling it, and botulism setting up and get food poisoning, the whole 9 yards. So we don't want that. And the way to ensure that we're going to have good, clean rims, of course, is to be as careful as you can when you're ladling the soup in. But get you a cloth of some sort and a bowl of white vinegar. White vinegar is a wonderful cleaner. Think about it, if you wash windows with it with the old newspaper, they just perfectly sparkly. Anyway, my friend Beth said that this is what she does, and it's what I do, so we're still living. So you would dip it in, and you would clean the rim, making sure that any trace of oil is gone. So we'll do that in just a second. I have turned my canner on, and I hear it starting to bubble, and it's, let's look. Oh yeah, it's starting to, releasing steam. So that's good because we don't want to put them in a cold pressure canner. We want to put this hot soup into a hot pressure canner. So we're in good shape. Here goes. I'm not exactly close here, so let me move my can over just a little bit. And I'm going in with my ladle. I'm going to just stir it up just a little bit. And it's beautiful, and it's going to taste so stinking good. So look, here we go. I'm just starting to fill in. You want to use considerable amount of solids in your scoops here, but then you also want to remember that this is soup. So use the liquid. Now we're going to leave an inch of headspace. When I say leave an inch of headspace, I'm going to show you. I have come up not quite to the rim. I have come up enough that there's just about an inch of space left in this jar. You have got to leave room for the air to get out. If you fill this all the way up to the rim, number one, it's going to spill out and you're not going to get a good seal, and you're not going to be able to get any of the air out for it to process and be safe to eat. So leave that headspace because it is so necessary. So you see I've got a good inch of headspace there. That's exactly what you want. And I'm going to get my next jar. Stir it up. If you were doing this and you happen to notice that there's a lot of fat on the surface of your soup, well then feel free to skim it off, because I mean you don't want it in there. It's perfectly fabulous if you're able to get all that fat off the top, or as much of it as you can. It's not necessary to get it all because you want it because it's flavor, but you don't want it because it'll inhibit your stinking seal process. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Sorry, I said a bad word. Sorry, Mama. Anyway, so I'm just going to continue in this manner, and I'm going to fill these jars up. And, well, I guess I'll go ahead and show you how to put a lid on. Make sure my headspace, look, is right up just under the rim. Perfect. Now I'm going to get my trusty cloth and I'm dipping it in so that the whole end of this is vinegary, smells like a pickle. I'm going at this and I'm going around the rim. And I'm cleaning any little bit of droplet of fat that might have popped up on it somehow. So that's good. So now we've ensured that as much as we can ensure, we have gotten rid of any impurity or any kind of fat that's on the lid. And, you know, if you try your best to be safe and have safe practices, well, that's all you can do. So I have put my lids into this hot water and I just brought them up to a boil and I cut it off. It's not necessary to boil these things that long. You just want to get the rim good and hot. You're melting, well, you're not melting the rubber, but you're softening up the rubber. So you stick it on there, and I usually do a few at a time. Shake off the water. Boom. And this thing's fabulous. It's a magnet, and you can get it at any, probably in the canning section of your supermarket, or I got that one at Walmart, so whatever. And you take your rim, and you stick it on. Now we're not going to hammer down like you're trying to seal it for life. You're going to screw it on there until it catches once, and then you're just going to go another half turn. You want it to be sealed good and firm, but you don't want to just hammer it down and continue to screw the lid on, because that will not allow any of the air to escape, and that's kind of defeating the point of all this work, because this is work, y'all. There's a lot of time invested in this, so do it right the first time and you'll be good to go. Alright, so here it is. It just caught. Another half turn. Sitting on there, putting my lid on, and it just caught. Another half turn, and boom, we're good. So these are going straight into my canning jar. Now see all this steam escaping? Whew. That means she's boiling. And that's good. That's what we want. So I'm going to get my trusty little, there they are. Don't be cocky and think you're not going to get burned. Be safe. Safety first, y'all. I use these little tongs. They got rubber grips on them. It holds your can and it goes straight into your canner. See that? Pick it up, hold the bottom, just like that. And it's going in the canner. I'm going to do a few more and get that thing. This is the last one that's going to fit on that bottom row. And get my lid here. Whew, you're hot. I wiped it off. Ready for this. Going in. Get my grippers. And going in the center. Now I have 7 quarts on that bottom layer. I cannot fit another layer of quarts on top. It just doesn't work that way. But it's time to put the lid on this one. Here we go. And it's perking along. You see it's bubbling. I'm going to put this on. Have to line up the V. There's a V notch on this lid. There's a V pointing on this little handle. Stick him down on there. Get him in place and turn him. So he is, for the most part, he's sealed up. Now, what's going to happen, the boil, the water, the steam, everything is just increasing because I have put a lid on this and it's contained. Well, that steam is going to have somewhere to go. So it's going to start coming out of this little port. I have to let the port vent for 10 minutes at a constant rate of steam coming out. That's just a safety precaution. That's what the FDA suggests. If you're reading the ball canning book, ball suggests you follow that guideline. And we're going to start watching this until we see a plume of steam coming out. At that point, I'm going to stick my timer on and I'm going to time it for 10 minutes. In the meantime, I will talk to you about weights. Now, this is the weight that came with my Presto. It's a 10-pound weight. And like I said before, that means that this cap's on and it cooks things at 10 pounds of pressure per square inch without, going crazy and toggling all over the place. If you keep it under control and keep it at a constant 10 pounds, then this is fine. If you go over the 10 pounds and it gets more so for a pressure cooker, not necessarily a pressure canner, because there is a difference. I don't prefer to use this with my pressure canner because there's variables, and I like to be able to set it and get it up to 11 pounds of pressure and be able to walk away and feel comfortable. So this little sucker is another little handy dandy toggle that actually Brad bought it for me, and it's 11 pounds weight exactly. And when we put this on, I can walk away and forget it once I get it up to 11 pounds on this gauge, because it's going to self-release. It'll let the air out because all it can stand is 11 pounds. So I was skeptical at first. I threw my nose up at these. I was like, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't work. Well, it does. It works really well. So I like these. You should buy one. Anyway, I'm feeling for the steam, and I do feel it. I'm not really seeing it so much yet, so that means that I just need to let it go for just a few more minutes until I really see some steam coming out. Shouldn't take that much longer. Oh, here we go. Now I'm starting to see it. I don't know if you can see it, but there's definitely a white plume of steam here. You hear it? That means that it is right where we want it. So I'm coming over to my timer, and I'm going to time it for 10 minutes. When 10 minutes is over, I am going to pop that on the vent, and I'm going to watch my gauge, and I'm going to bring it up to 11 pounds of pressure, and then I can turn the heat down a little bit because I don't need to be at such a rolling high boil. because this is going to take care of it for me, and it's going to hold it at a steady 11 pounds. And we're going to have to cook this stuff for 90 minutes. So it's good to be able to kind of not have to keep your eye on it the whole time. Of course, you know, I'm not going to drive off and go shopping while this is cooking, but it does allow me to do other things in the meantime. So, 10 minutes, I'll be back. Okay, so the buzzer just went off. 10 minutes of steam is purged out of here. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, but I can sure enough feel it and I can hear it. So now what I'm going to do, I'm putting the little cap on. That is an 11-pound weight. Now, I need the 11-pound weight because of my altitude where I live. You might need a different weight. You might need 15 pounds. It just depends on the altitude of where you actually live. I know that sounds crazy. Trust me, it's all about barometric pressure, y'all. I'm serious. So listen, do yourself a favor and read your owner's manual. Find out what altitude you live in. If you live in a very, very, very mountainous region, you know, you're going to have to use a different weight. And invest in that ball book of canning. Seriously, it's like the Bible for canners, and it won't ever steer you wrong. So anyway, we've got the toggle on, my 11-pound weight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm waiting for the pressure to build. And the pressure is going to slowly build up until I get to the 11-pound mark. When I get to the 11-pound mark, that means that I am in business and I can start my timer so that it can go to cooking for 90 minutes, because that's how long it takes for this to cook and be considered safe, is 90 minutes for the quarts. Now, I did put quarts together with some pints in this other canner, and it's fine if those pints go a little bit longer. You normally only have to go 70, I think, or 75 minutes for a pint. They're going to go for 90 because I'm cooking them with several quarts, and it's fine. Really, really, really. So, we're already up a little bit. We're at 1. So, as soon as it gets up to temperature, I'll be back, and I'll show you what we do next. So, we're right where we want to be, y'all. We're at 11 pounds of pressure. My toggle's going. That means it's letting off any excess steam. It's not needed. Just needs to hold 11 pounds of pressure per square inch, and it's doing a good job. So, we're just going to let this process for 90 minutes, and then I can open up the canner after it comes down to 0 pressure, and we can start putting it out to cool down and put it on the shelf. I'll be back. Okay, y'all, it is time to open up this pressure canner. Now, this is the other one that I had on the stove. I ran into a little problem with mine, so I got it fixed. It's under control, but it's just now coming down in pressure, so it's not ready to open. So I'm going to open this one, which worked perfectly. Thank you to my sister Lisa. So it's at 0 pressure on the gauge. If you can see that, but it is. It says 0, and I took the toggle off. So here we go. And a puff of steam. And it's delightful in here, y'all. I want you to look. Oh, and I hear it. I hear some of the, because they're not sealed yet. They're still releasing pressure. So I'm going in. Whoops. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to show you what we've got. Look, how delightful. There's one of the quarts. And here is a pint. And they're just lovely. They've just sealed well, I don't know if they're going to seal beautifully, but I'm satisfied they will, because I took great pains to get all the fat off the rim, and they were clean, and I turned them just right. So I think this is a worthwhile project. If you're interested in food preservation, then by all means, you need to consider investing in a pressure canner and get one that's big enough. Because if you just get a little tiny one, you'll only be able to do a couple of jars at a time. And what's the point in that, right? Anyway, I am going to continue to unload this one and unload that next one when it comes down in pressure. And we can call this a day. These jars are going to cool down overnight. And in the morning, I'll wipe them down. I'll label them so I know when I made it, just for, well, just for information. In case I give a jar away and somebody wants to know what it is and when it was made, the information will be on top. I hope that you have gotten some information out of this. I hope that you found it useful. I hope that you found it somewhat entertaining. I mean, it is what it is. But I sure was happy to be here for you and to walk you through the steps, because I really enjoy doing this kind of work. And truth be told, it is work. It's been all day. I feel like I've been in this kitchen all day, but it is worthwhile. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up or even subscribe to my channel. I would love that. If you want to come and visit me over at my website, jamieteachmetocook.com, you'll be able to find the printable recipe for the soup, as well as some other photographs that I'll have taken of the process and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's always wonderful to have you here in my kitchen with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, y'all.